I'll pull it back up.
Just like car 2, most women believe that they could hold the same value as a woman with the actual chastity and virtuous car 1. Why would a man want car 2 over car 1?
Okay, so I actually would like to answer that, just because there are some cars, like especially the more vintage cars, for example, they've been, around like for a while, and they would sit in the garage for, a few years, but it's like they have not put the test of actually like that they're reliable, that they wouldn't break. And there are a few cars, like for example, there's a Jaguars, like a few Jaguars, like where they're just not made to begin with reliable. So you would want a car with a few more miles on it, just to make sure that it wouldn't just break apart, like 100, 200 miles in. However, which is why it's completely weird to compare cars to women, because cars are made by, all these different people, all these different components that are playing part to it, and women, they're human beings.
He's clearly talking about women.
Well, yes, I know that.
Clearly.
I know that he's clearly talking about women, which is why, like, I don't think that that's a
good
fair
analogy.
comparison.
Yeah, you don't
at
think that's a
all.
good analogy?
Like in any way, just because again, cars are they're machines, and they're made they're very technical, and women again it's a whole different aspect. Like you can't compare like an inanimate made object with a human being.
I think
That's
it's an interesting comparison. I'm not going to say that I like it, but I think it's very interesting because when it comes to relationships, like as a woman or a man, I think that as a woman going into a relationship, knowing who you are and who you are as a romantic partner, whether that be sexually, your communication styles, I think knowing those things are so important when seeing how compatible you can be with someone.
But what does that have to do with the car?
It doesn't have anything to do with the car, but we know the comparison that the person in the chat is making.
Yeah, obvious, but it's like
so. Like
again,
I think
like,
that
I
in a way
don't
that's like
see
that,
how
I
that
think
has-
that's why
because a car
someone-
doesn't know itself.
I think that's why someone would pick car 2.
What mileage? The
car
mileage
with the
would
more
be
the car with the more
knowing-
mileage
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
they know a bit about more themselves. And then when
And
you go
they're,
into
like,
a
more
relationship,
reliable.
it's kind of hard, in my opinion, when it's someone's first relationship.
I agree.
They lack that experience of communication, being with someone intellectually, sometimes physically.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. Everything's new. And so I feel like relationships in a way are trial and error, because it's very seldom that two people get together and it's their first relationship ever and they're together forever. When it does work like that, when there's high school sweethearts, that's fabulous. I'm so happy for them.
My grandparents.
But it's very rare.
But yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
I think, Alex, that you're looking at this in the wrong way, right? The wrong dynamic. You're kind of taking it and viewing it through a feminine perspective, kind of over and over again, right? Oh, you can't compare women to cars. You can't. Okay, so take yourself out of that for a second and put yourself in the male's perspective. So from the male perspective, shit works or it don't work. That's how we think of everything, right? Does this shit work? Yep, it works, great, right? That's how we think of everything. So how we think of step 2 is, when is this thing that works not going to work, right? So that this would go into the car analogy, right? So if it's got 200,000 miles, we know it's not going to work at 400,000 miles, right? But we're taking the same mechanical brain and we're applying it to women, and we're like, okay, does this woman work if she has a lot more dick, or does she work if she has a lot less dick, right? Does it work for us or does it not work for us? Very simple, right? It actually is a fine comparison, because the idea is just, does it work, does it not work? Is this going to work or is this not going to work?
So I do agree with you that I am looking at it like from a more kind of, as you said, the feminine perspective. That's like, you can't compare a car to a woman. However, to be fair, the actual car thing and whether or not it would work, I did get from a man, and he would choose a car that has way more miles and that is proven to be reliable, versus a car that has been sitting in the garage with 0 miles. Because you can buy a car, especially from the comment where it
silly,
says
right?
100K.
Hang on,
but it's like you wouldn't know if it would
you already
work.
messed it all up, Alex. You already messed it all up, because you try to kind of sneak in you kind of try to sneak in a new premise, which is he would take the car that has a proven track record of at X amount of miles still being reliable, right? Okay, let's take that little sneaky part out of there. And we're just comparing two random cars to a man. And you tell the man, okay, you like both these cars. This one has 200,000 miles. This one has no miles. All right, his mechanical brain's going to say what? It's going to say, okay, well, if this one has 200,000 miles on it, then I want the one that has less mileage because it's going to probably work for longer, right? You can give him no other information than just that.
Okay.
And that's likely what he's going to say, right?
Okay, so I do feel like perhaps, but then again, you're very generalizing because just like cars, relationships are very different and very person specific, because some people love brand new cars, but some people prefer vintage cars. So it's like, I don't know.
But,
like
okay,
I understand what you're saying, but I don't see how it's comparison.
Do you think that men would prefer vintage cars with less miles or more miles?
More miles, because again, it proves reliability.
It would be so the vintage car with less miles is going to be worth way more money and it's going to be way more reliable. What are you talking about?
Because so if the vintage car has 0 miles on it, it has not proven that it would work, and the actual parts like to replace it would be way more expensive than a car that has actually been proven that it is working. Like all the parts are going together.
Why would the parts be more expensive to replace on a low mileage vintage vehicle?
Okay, I did kind of misspoke a little bit. It's more about like, because it has not actually been driven out, it has not actually been tried, there is a chance that it would break, especially since it has not been, like running for a few years, like it's just been sitting in the garage.
Yeah, there'd be less. Okay, but if it was a 200,000 or 300,000 mile vehicle and it was sitting in the garage for the same amount of time, it would have a worse chance of starting than the vehicle that had 50,000 miles on it. Like, what do you mean? This makes no sense.
So I actually agree, which is why I said, like, if it has like 1,000 miles, that would be a great indicator. And again, we're just talking about cars at this point. It's specifically the 0 miles vintage car that's been sitting in the garage.
You mean the thing that every man who loved vintage cars would want more than anything else?
It would depend.
The car with 0 miles on an original engine. Hang on the original engine, the original body, the original everything has 0 miles. That's the car they're going to take out knives and kill each other over, rather than let somebody buy it out from under them.
And then they would put it back in the garage and not do anything with it because it's a vintage car. However, the people who actually want to drive the car,
they're going to drive that shit. What do you mean?
Because it could break.
You know why they want the vintage car?
Because they have no idea how it's going to work. It has
they want the 0 mile vintage car because they want to be the first person to press on that fucking gas pedal.
Yeah, and then it's going to break 20 miles in.
Vroom, vroom, baby! I was the first one in this vintage car to make it go vroom.
Yeah, right? And then it's going to break 20 miles in. So it's like you don't know what a vintage car is.
Why the fuck would it break 20 miles in?
Because a lot of vintage cars do that. A lot of vintage cars do break very fast once they were sitting in the garage for 20, 30 years.
Vintage cars with higher miles on them, though. So I don't even understand what your argument is here.
If they were sitting in the garage for a while, yes, all the cars would break. I'm just gonna say that. I agree with you on there. If the car was sitting in the garage, however, if the car was actually been driven throughout, those, 20, 30, like 200,000 miles, and it does not have any, like track record, like, and was actually checked properly this entire time, throughout all the years, then it has the reliability, like points to it because it has not broken, and it means it was put together very well and in a craftsmanship like way. However, there are some cars that were made in the past that just didn't have that point.
Are you smoking methamphetamine right now?
No.
Like that? Okay. This makes 0 sense. I'm gonna
if you say so.
I'm going to reiterate back to you what you just said. Classic car, has the same engine, same body, same everything as
There's
the
no
other
such
classic
thing as the
car.
same when it's put together by different people.
My turn, Alex. Calm down. Has the same everything as the other car, except it has 0 miles. You're saying your argument here is, well, the one with 300,000 miles has been proven to have driven. Yeah, so what? The likelihood of the one with 0 miles being able to get a lot more life out of that car, it's like 1,000% better, right? It's like 1,000% better.
Okay,
everybody wants the classic car with 0 miles because they want to be the first person to put the very first mile on the car.
Are you a car guy?
You know why they want to do that? Hang on, my turn. Wait a second. You know why they want to do that? They want to do it just for the hell of it. They want to be like, I did it. I was the first. I put the first mile on this motherfucker. Nobody else put a mile on this car except this guy. They love that shit.
Just Gerald donated $200. Jesus. We'd rather be inside a car that's never been driven over a car that's driven by 30 people. Ergo, we'd rather be inside a woman who no one's been inside of than a woman who's had 30 men inside.
Okay, Andrew,
yeah, totally.
are you a car guy?
I'm never taking you to an auto auction. I'm never taking you to an auto auction. You'd be like, I want to pay $1 million for that car over there that has 300,000 miles on it because after all, it's proven that it drives down the road. Like, what the fuck kind of logic is this?
Do you go to a lot of vintage car shows?
Okay, hold on.
I think we're like stippling away from like the concept.
I completely agree, which is why
It's
I
my
don't
rant,
think
and
that
I'll take it
it's
where I want to take it.
okay,
Anyway,
which
go
is why
ahead.
I disagree that a car analogy and a woman analogy is it does not actually fit because there's different.
Do you know what an
aspects to
analogy
it.
is?
Well,
If she has 0 miles on her, and then y'all will just complain that she's a pillow princess because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Oh boy.
You do, though, Alex, agree that a man, like men in general, they do want women who have less baggage.
I completely
less body
agree
count.
with that.
I kept thinking of Q and like, you're the first one to put those miles on those girls. You know what I mean?
And
so
I
I'm
completely
thinking,
agree with
like,
that
okay,
concept.
what ended up happening though for that lady who you said she thanked you. I think we can all agree there are men out there who are going to accept that. Like, you know what? Yeah, she has some miles, but at the end of the day, the miles are on there doesn't mean it's a good car.
No, it doesn't mean it's a good car. However, again, like, do you go to a lot of the vintage car shows?
No.
Do you, Andrew, go to a lot of the vintage car shows?
Not a lot, but I've been to
Okay,
a couple.
see, I have been to a lot of vintage car
What did I
shows.
say that? What did I
Does
say?
that
What-
have-
wait,
Yeah,
repeat
again,
back what I said.
which is why I think it's a
I
bad
don't go to a
analogy.
lot, but I've been to them.
Yeah.
Yes,
and-
I've been to them.
Okay. Fine. And I've been to a lot of vintage car shows. So it's like, I don't know.
Nobody at the vintage car shows you're going to is not competing over the lowest mile vintage cars. That's
Okay,
insane.
we're talking about 0 miles, and again,
Yeah,
I've said a
zero.
perfect mileage is
I have
about
an original
1,000 miles.
Roadrunner.
So
I have an original
don't agree
Roadrunner
to
with 0 miles. Oh, I don't want that one, Paul. Said no fucking vintage car ever. Nobody's ever said that. in the
Yeah,
history
because
of
it's going to
mankind.
continue sitting in the garage. It's not going to be driven.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll drive it. They'll drive it just to put the first mile on it. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
every
just the
vintage,
first
that's
mile.
every vintage buyer's dream. It's like buying a vintage gun that's
like,
never been fired once. The first thing you're going to do is take that fucker out of the box and go shoot it. That's how it works.
So what you're saying is a vintage car, just like a virgin woman, let's say, you would just want to kind of have her, just like the car, sit in the garage and not really, go for a drive and be reliable?
Because you'd want to fuck her. That's what I'm saying. I think you'd want her because you'd want to take her for a spin. I think you'd want her because
then
you'd
it's
want to
gonna
have
break
sex with her
200
a lot
miles
and
in.
not put her in the garage. That's what I think. But what do I know?
Okay.
What do I know?
As long
kinda
as
crazy.
someone buys a car, I think everyone can have different opinions. But I think like I feel like, are you talking about a physical car? Because I think we're talking about relationships and like
Yes, I know.
experience.
Which I agree on the relationship and the experience part, but it's like, again, I don't agree with the car part. I think
it was
that's a
never
good
about the
analogy.
car.
That's it.
It was never
I
about
think
the
the
car.
car
I
vintage.
know it's not about the car, but
is-
I don't think it should be about the car at all.
Yeah,
but
I think
I
It's
agree.
not.
Yeah, no,
I
I
think,
completely
yeah.
agree with
We all
the
want a car.
relationship and the women part of it, and that women, and that man would want somebody with less, miles on it, whatever. But it just, the car thing just does not make sense to me.
Okay. Anyways, we're all gonna get a car one day or another. What's the next question?
Yes, they want them to go vroom. They want them to go vroom. They want the car to go vroom. They want the chick to go vroom. They want the gun to go boom.
I'm sure you do.
That's what they want. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but that's what they all want.
Yeah, and any car would go
all
vroom,
right,
so.
all right. You've had okay. All right, Crazy Ace, thank you for the gift of 10 subs. We have 2 chats we got to read. I'll have you read them for us. They're going to come up here in just a sec. Ace, thank you for the gifted 10 subs. Appreciate it. Oh, Andrew, you're lagging a little bit.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.